So just how high are we going to go with this Dungeons and Dragons thing? In this D&D vlog, we're going to explore the idea of high character levels, high-level character adventures from the perspective of the Dungeon Master and from the perspective of the player. Now, throughout its history, throughout its various incarnations, D&D has had different levels, and sometimes it's had level caps, hard cap at 20, there you go. You retire and become a shopkeeper. And other times, in theory, when you level up, you gain hit points and spells and abilities and other proficiencies, depending on the system. Is it feat or is it hardwired in to the game? In some versions of D&D, technically, you might stop at level, depending on the character, 13 to 18, gaining abilities, but then you gain hit points for every level, and you could essentially go infinite levels. But at that point, you're really not gaining new abilities or new powers to your class. So you're like, I'm just going to gain another 6 hit points per level. It kind of loses the motivation at various points. And yet, if we go back to real old school D&D, there was a chance to become immortal. You started off with the basic rules, which was a red box, red cover D&D. You went to the advanced kind of intermediate rules. It was a blue box. Then you went to a blue. Then you went to a green, or perhaps it was green to a blue. My memory's a little bit fuzzy in that. Too many editions of D&D in my brain. And then you made it to the gold box, the immortals. Essentially, it had you as an immortal flying with like a dragon behind you. And as a dungeon master, I owned, and I still own, the gold box. But as a player, I was never able to make my character immortal. Functionally, in D&D, you literally become a god. You level up to such a point where now you're taking on the gods and literally shaping entire realms. That's a far cry from level 1, a level 1 fighter. So from that perspective, the main thing that I see is we can go as high as you want as a player, but there's really 2 limitations in my mind as a player. One, what am I gaining as I level up? I'm beating on these monsters. I'm getting this treasure. I'm saving the realm. I'm working with the different factions and guilds. I'm working with my players. I want to be rewarded not only in experience points, and not only gold and treasure and magic items, but I want to gain new abilities. I want more hit points because I got to survive. I want more abilities. I want more spells. I want more feats. I want more clickies. I want to increase my chances. I'm playing my thief acrobat, so just whatever. Acrobatics goes from 20% to 25% chance. I want to be leveling up. Once you kind of cap, as a player, I kind of lose my motivation with that. I'm gaining hit points. Where do I go? There's also this idea, we especially see it started in D&D 3.x with level 20, and it's accelerated, where you reach the higher levels. Now, just exactly what are the higher levels? That depends on D&D. That's a D&D Tactica vlog for another time. But you reach a point where you're beating on things with regular ease and the power level is so high, there's really not much of a challenge. There's really not much stuff that you can face. At that point, you kind of lose out on the risk versus reward. So I will generally look as a player to say, how high can this game go and we still have a challenge? Now, the other limitation, both as a player and as a DM, and then we're going to jump in as a DM, is the physical time constraint, right? Whether you're playing traditional tabletop or you're doing the virtual thing, you start out at whatever level, let's say level 1, you play with a group of players, or you play a series of adventures or a campaign. At some point, it's going to end. Either the campaign's going to end and you're interested in exploring something completely different, or the group has gone as far as it's going to go. So it might be level 8, might be level 10, might be level 12, might be level 6. This idea of D&D groups, they're organic and they have a shelf life up to a certain point. Then they tend to disband. You might come back later with the same players. You might come back with different players. So that's the other limitation I see with asking the question, just how high does this D&D thing go? It could be level 100. Am I actually going to get there in the gaming group? Now, as a DM, I like to, in theory, as best as possible, it's not to say I don't play one-off adventures, I like to go in at level 1. I really like to start at level 1 with my players And I try to give them a heads up saying, here's the adventures we're going to play. I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but I'm going to give you some background knowledge, what you would know in the realm, what you kind of hear. You roll up your character, you're ready to go. And on average, we'll reach this level, level 10, level 15, level 8, level 6. So you can kind of plan out what you'd like to do. I find as the characters get higher and higher, depending on the version of D&D, current D&D, D&D 5, D&D Next, D&D for All, whatever we're going to call it, it's like once I hit like level 10 or 12 with veteran D&D players, even though we got this challenge rating thing, they're owning most things. Because current D&D, you're more of like a Marvel superhero where you have so many abilities and you can do so many clickies and do so many things. It's not just the power of your own character. It's the fact where current D&D, it does do it correct with player interaction, but the ability to have character classes be like, I'm giving you advantage, I'm giving you rerolls, I'm giving you temporary bonus damage, I'm giving you temporary hit points. This idea of buffs is so massive that, yes, on paper, you're level 10, virtual or physical, you're challenge rating this, but once the party gets together and clicks off all the synergies and buffs up, you're blasting through absolutely everything. You know, that challenge rating should be like adjusted 5, 6, 7 tiers higher. So what I find is as we get to the higher levels, it's almost like you want to stop because, yes, there is that achievement, absolutely, in achieving your character level. But when you blast through everything and auto win, even the most power-inclined D&D player is like, again, the same old stuff. So the power curve on D&D currently accelerates very, very, very fast. I find as a DM kind of the best risk versus reward, and agree or disagree, is around level 6 to 10. Going to depend on the group, going to depend on the character class, going to depend on how many adventurers are in a party. So that is kind of a big number, 6 to 10. But within there, you've got some power, you've got some clickies, you've got some buffs, but the monsters and the encounters can still throw some significant weight behind them.